First, there was the hybrid version of the Hyundai Santa Fe, and now there's this one here. The new turbo petrol model range has arrived, and it represents a $2,500 discount over the other versions. So, is it worth saving the money to get this engine, or should you spend up to the hybrid, or consider one of the alternatives that I'll mention in this review too? Well, let's find out, shall we? Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, let's get to it. The Hyundai Santa Fe turbo petrol model range is a broad one, and yes, as I said earlier, there's a $2,500 advantage over the hybrid versions, which still remain in their entirety as well. So you're talking about a $53,000 starting price for the entry-level front-wheel drive Santa Fe turbo petrol. You can get it with all-wheel drive if you spend a little bit of extra cash, but you are getting still plenty of standard spec and tech for the money in that entry-level grade. Things like 20-inch alloy wheels, LED headlights and daytime running lights. You get a cloth interior trim, but driver's electric seat adjustment. It mirrors the same spec as the other base model grade. So you're still getting the big twin screens inside, climate control, a surround view camera system and blind spot view monitor, all at that entry-level price point. I think it does stack up really, really well if you're looking for a bargain 7-seater. Now, what about this mid-spec version here? This is the Elite, and it does have a few extra features for the cash. Still the same 20-inch wheels, but it's all-wheel drive only, and it gets exterior silver highlights, remote smart parking assist if you ever want to use that, black or cream leather interior trim finishing. You've also got a power adjustable passenger seat, heated steering wheel, Bose premium sound system, dual wireless smartphone chargers instead of just one like you get in the base model. And at the top of the range is the calligraphy model. It has all the kit that you can get from Hyundai if you want a Santa Fe, including plenty of great inclusions, such as different looking 20-inch alloy wheels. It gets a big glass sunroof, a head-up display, digital center mirror, so you can see through people's faces just by using a camera instead of a rear view mirror, and different Napa leather interior trim. So I think that if you're buying the high spec version, you are getting plenty of SUV for your money, but let me tell you about some good alternatives that you might want to take a look at as well. One of the best alternatives to the Hyundai Santa Fe is the Kia Sorento, and look, you might not necessarily be tempted into the V6 petrol entry-level version of that car, but it does stack up pretty well for what you're paying versus what you're getting. It is a lovely thing to drive, even that V6. I mean, it just lacks a bit of traction at the front axle, and it revs pretty hard and it uses a fair bit of juice. So I always say if you're considering a Sorento and you can make it work for your needs, then you should go for the diesel version, because it is a very, very good vehicle to drive. And if diesel is something that you are considering and you want something that's maybe a bit more rugged and off-roadable, then you maybe should go and have a look at an Isuzu MU-X. The pricing is pretty impressive for the updated version. There's better tech and spec now, and you can still get it with a choice of 2 different diesel engines if you want to. And if you're not thinking that diesel is right for you and you want something that's big and practical and comfortable, well, for the most part, the Mazda CX-80 could be a good choice. It has a 6-cylinder engine option lineup, and they are really great engines. It's maybe not the greatest drive experience in rounded terms, but I tell you what, it does have plenty of practicality and space and some luxurious finishes and pricing that might surprise you as well. So would you choose any of those or something else, like a Chery Tiggo 8 Pro, which would be really, really affordable? I'd love to know what you think. Links in the description if you want to see any of those reviews too. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can check out my earlier review of the Santa Fe, which covers a lot more detail in terms of the exterior dimensions and the interior practicality as well. I get into all 3 rows of seats, and it really does show you what sort of space you've got to play with, including the boot space with the seats up and with them folded down as well. So if you want to know all the size and interior details about the Santa Fe, nothing changes between the hybrid versions and this one. It's just that this one doesn't get a hybrid badge on the back and doesn't get a hybrid engine under the bonnet either, but it does have plenty of practicality. So make sure you check out that review. You'll find the link in the description. But let's check out this engine, shall we? As you can see, it says turbo quite proudly on the engine cover there, and this 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine is a punchy unit. 206 kilowatts of power, 422 Newton meters of torque. And yes, as I said, you can get it with front wheel drive in the entry-level grade or all-wheel drive for the top spec models. All versions come with an 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. We'll get to how that behaves in driving situations in a sec. I'm going to put some figures on your screen to tell you about the weights of this vehicle. It is lighter than the hybrid by a substantial margin, and yet it can tow more than the hybrid. So if you are thinking that you'll be using your Santa Fe as a practical family vehicle and occasionally towing something behind it, just keep in mind your downball weight is 100 kilo limited, so it can't be a big thing behind it, but it is still better towing capacity than the hybrids. Right, let's go for a drive, shall we? Get away from those cockatoos. Okay, before we get driving, I'm just going to turn off some of the safety systems. I'll turn off the speed limit warning. That bing, 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 that's the driver monitoring camera system to tell me that I'm not paying enough attention. So I've turned that off as well because it's absolutely frustrating. And yes, so is the speed sign warning system in my opinion. So I get annoyed by some of the safety systems in this car, and that's not unfamiliar from other Hyundai and Kia products by that metric. So there's lots of new cars that really annoy me. And I mean, if you can get used to turning them off all the time, or if you are okay with being warned incessantly that something might not be 100% perfectly done, then, well, you'll be fine with it, but I'm not. Anyway, now let's go and drive this thing. 2.5 litre turbo petrol engine. It is super punchy. It is way, way, way punchier than some of the other cars in this class, and way more fun as well. I really like this engine. I think it's a fantastic one, but, well, it's a little thirsty. We'll get to that in the next section of this video, but I just want to tell you about this 2.5 4-cylinder turbo petrol. The response is excellent. The 8-speed dual clutch auto is clever and smart and smooth for the most part. In some situations at lower speeds, you might find that it can be, well, a little clumsy feeling when you're taking away from a standstill or something like that. But I don't think it's a deal breaker. I think it's a pretty smooth transmission. And well, if you really want to, you can take matters into your own hands using the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Not necessarily sure that that's a big help, but the transmission logic is generally pretty good as well. Now, there are different drive modes. If you want to play with those, you can change things up and make it a bit more sporty to drive, or a little bit more lethargic feeling to drive, because, well, in the normal drive mode, it sort of feels a bit more lethargic. But honestly, I'm really impressed with this powertrain. It's a great fit, and far more fitting than the petrol V6 that you find in the Sorento, which is like the cousin to this car. So I wonder whether we'll see this engine rolled out into the Sorento. We'll have to wait and see, but this one is pretty good, I've got to say. And if you can't stretch the extra $2.5 grand, or you're not worried about saving fuel, then it would be a fairly good choice, I would say. But there are other elements of this drive experience which, well, seem a bit peculiar to me. So it is a bit lighter, but it doesn't necessarily feel better to drive as a result of that. What I mean by that is that it does have still quite a firm feeling ride. It's not uncomfortable, but at times I've noticed that, well, maybe it's to do with the sidewalls of these different tires that you get on the turbo petrol compared to the hybrid, can be a little bit more nibbly on like little bumps in the surface, so you can sort of have your progress upset a little bit more easily, especially around town. I've noticed that to be a bit of a consideration for me, at least. So I don't think it's bad, I just think that it's a little bit different to the hybrid. Otherwise, the ride comfort is pretty good, and the steering response is too, and generally the parkability is great because of the inclusion of a standard surround view camera system on all Santa Fe's. I just think that is such a, well, market meeting movement, because it's a family SUV. It should have a surround view camera, and I mean, most cars should, in my opinion. If you can get it in a $25,000 MG, why can't you get it in everything? That's my opinion anyway. Obviously there's technical limitations and software and blah, 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 but yes, it's good to see that you can get that tech as standard in a Santa Fe, and it's really good. And another thing, this non-hybrid version doesn't get regen braking, so it has different brake pedal feel as well. It's pretty honest, and it will pull up pretty speedily when you do hit those brakes, but do have quite a bit of travel to the top of the pedal, so it might just take a little bit of getting used to. Otherwise, generally, this drive experience, perfectly fine. And like I said, if you can't justify the extra $2.5 grand or don't want to get a hybrid for whatever reason, this would be a fantastic choice for you, I reckon. Or would it? Let's talk fuel consumption. All right, the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for this vehicle is 9.3 litres per 100 Ks, no matter which version you pick. And that is not the thirstiest in the class, but it's one of the thirstier ones in the class. And if you're wondering what I've seen over my testing, which has been the sort of driving you'll probably do, urban driving with some family members on board, bit of highway, bit of commuting, all that sort of stuff, I've seen, well, 10 litres per 100 Ks. So yeah, maybe not necessarily the most frugal vehicle, but unlike some other turbo petrol SUVs, it can run on 91 RON regular unleaded. I personally wouldn't do that if I bought this car. I would run it on 95 because it is better. But you also have a decent sized fuel tank capacity. So you should be able to get, well, reasonable cruising range, but not as much as the hybrid. Just keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? The hybrid's better. The Santa Fe has a 5-star ANCAP safety rating from pretty recently, and it's got heaps of standard spec and tech no matter whether you choose the petrol or the hybrid. Things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection. There's lane keeping assistance, there's adaptive cruise control, there's traffic jam assist as well, so it can stop, start and steer in some situations for you. You've also got really great features like a surround view camera as standard, which I think is a brilliant inclusion for a vehicle like this. And it also gets a blind spot view monitor camera system as well, no matter which version you pick. Plus there's regular blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert with braking as well. And it just has a really, well, frustrating element when it comes to some of the safety systems. So the speed sign recognition system is frustrating because it chimes and chimes, because it will chime when the speed limit changes or it thinks the speed limit has changed, and it will also chime if it thinks that you're going over that speed limit. So that might get really frustrating if it gets it wrong a lot, because it has on my test, and also if you live in a place where the speed limits change a lot, like where I live. And there's also a driver monitoring camera system, which can really give you the shits. It has a little camera on top of the steering wheel and will keep an eye on your eyes. And occasionally it will just bing and bong to tell you that you're distracted or tired, even if you're not or you're not. So yeah, some of the safety technology integration is a bit frustrating in my opinion. And I say that from a place of love. I've lived with a Santa Fe for a little while now as a long-term loan vehicle. And every time I get in the car, I have to turn those things off because they turn back on every time you get back in. Now, when it comes to airbags, there are 10 fitted to this vehicle. There's dual front, front side, a front center airbag, a driver's knee airbag, rear side airbags, and curtain airbags that protect all 3 rows. The Hyundai Santa Fe has a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, just like the other models in the lineup. And there's some pretty interesting things when it comes to the servicing. So there's a checkup that you need to do early on in the ownership program, but then your servicing is every 12 months and 10,000 Ks, which is a bit needier than some of the other cars in the class. And it has the same intervals as the hybrid for this turbo petrol, the same prices for servicing as well. And that will average out at a, well, reasonable-ish rate. You'll see the price average on your screen over the first 5 years of servicing. Now, the brand has a lifetime cap price servicing plan for this vehicle. So if you want to go online or speak to the dealership and find out what it's going to cost you at 150,000 Ks to maintain it, you can do that. And if you do service your car in the Hyundai service network, well, they'll add roadside assist each time you go back. So it'll just keep renewing, and that's a nice bonus, I reckon. I guess the biggest consideration for some people though might be resale value, because well, looking into my crystal ball, would think that hybrids might hold their value a little better than turbo petrols in the longer term. But I'd love to know your thoughts. I like the turbo petrol version of the Santa Fe, and I like the fact that it is a bit cheaper, but honestly, I would just spend the extra and get the hybrid, because I think in real world driving situations, you will save quite a lot of fuel, and it is a slightly smoother drive experience more generally, in my opinion. So what do you think? Would you go for the turbo petrol or the hybrid? Is it worth $2,500 extra to you? And what else would you buy if you wouldn't choose this? Have your say in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you when I see you.